Hello everyone, this is me, Big T, and today we're going to do The Holiday Detour by P0rtkey. This is a Harry Potter fan fiction, or from the Harry Potter fandom, however you want to cut it. And you know what? Let's get into it. On with the show. The Holiday Detour. It looked like a setup. It kind of felt like one, too. Not that Tonks minded at all. Remus had made the innocent mistake of announcing he was headed to Flourish and Bots to collect a package before the shops closed, and both Molly and Sirius, agreeing on something for once, had thought she should go along to keep him company. As far as Tonks was concerned, it was a perfect opportunity to spend time alone with him, the sort of chance for which she was always looking. But at the same time, this little episode proved that others were beginning to suspect something might be starting up between them, and that if it hadn't quite yet, they would help move things along by pushing them together. It was nice, she thought, but it made her wonder how Remus was feeling about all the heavy-handedness. They stood on the steps in a bit of confusion, trying to adjust to the teeth-chattering cold. Molly had shooed them out of the house before they were ready, closing the front door so quickly Tonks thought the hem of her black traveling cloak might have been caught in it as it slammed shut. The two of them finished the necessary task of fastening buttons and adjusting their hats in silence. Gloves came last, and she watched as Remus carefully worked his long-fingered hands into the thoroughly worn pair he owned. Little did he know that a week ago, on pure impulse, she bought him new ones for Christmas. Dark brown, butter-soft kidskin with rabbit fur lining. The lovely shop-wrap box was sitting on the table in her flat right now, just waiting. Tonks sighed inwardly. The big question was whether or not she'd find the nerve to actually give it to him. As they descended the snowy steps, the old house shrank away from Grimmauld Place, and all was quiet. It had been a very cold but sunny day, and the darkened sky was perfectly clear, an endless showcase for countless bright stars, and the silver-white slice of moon that hung over their heads. She glanced up at him to see if he was ready to go. Remus met her gaze and laughed quietly. "I hope you don't mind coming along, in spite of how it may have seemed in there." He suddenly tilted his head towards the invisible house. "You do have a choice." "Oh, I know," she said, laughing softly too. "I'm happy to go." He gave her a boyish smile and then looked away toward the end of the street. "In front of the leaky cauldron, then?" "See you there." They appeared on the pavement outside the old pub within seconds of each other, then wordlessly made their way inside. It was standing room only. The place was jammed with people eating, drinking, smoking, and spinning tales, all to the sound of carols on the wireless. The cheery warmth lasted only a minute or two as Remus, determined to avoid the crowd, ducked his head and blazed a slow but steady path through to Diagon Alley. Despite the cold, once they were outside again, he didn't seem to be in a hurry to get to the bookshop. They walked along slowly, taking in the festive decorations of the narrow, crooked lanes, and stopping to look in the frost-ringed shop windows. Most were crowded with flashing displays, vying for the attention of passers-by, announcing sales on the essentials, the bazaar, and offering loads of last-minute gift ideas. "There aren't as many people out and about as I would have expected," said Tonks. "I think that's because they're all in the leaky cauldron." They paused for a moment at the window of a shop selling wine and spirits. "Since tomorrow is Christmas Eve, I'd have thought more folks had shopping to finish, but maybe the better cold had kept them at home, close to the fires and hot buttered rum," she said, pointing at the display beyond. He leaned down and spoke near her ear. "Not a bad idea, if you ask me." She glanced at their reflection in their glass and felt almost giddy. He was standing so close. "So I guess old Mundungus has a heart after all," she blurted somewhat nervously as they turned away and resumed their stroll. "I think he feels badly for Molly, seeing as how she's so worried about Arthur." "You mean because he brought over the Christmas tree?" "Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?" "It is." "I wonder where he got it." "Well, when it comes to Mundungus Fletcher, it's best not to ask those kinds of questions." "I wish I had a nice little tree for my flat. I always mean to get one. I have some of my grand's old decorations I could use for it, but I forget or get sidetracked, and then it's too late. By the time I remember, it's really not worth it, you know?" "Oh, it's not too late, is it?" Remus came to a stop as they reached the front of Flourish and Bots. "I don't know. Maybe not, but I'm going to my parents sometime tomorrow, so she smiled and shrugged. He opened the shop door for her. Do you normally spend Christmas with your parents? He asked, following her inside. Yeah, they invite other people for dinner too, but then after everyone else leaves, I stay and spend the night in my old room. It's the same thing every year, she said, laughing self-consciously. Suppose that kind of sounds silly, right? To be such a girl. Not at all. I think it's nice. And there's certainly nothing wrong with enjoying your family, he said, smiling when she looked up at him. He rested his hand on her back for a second. It'll just be a minute. While Remus picked up the dark arts book Sirius had ordered for Harry's Christmas gift, Tonks milled around the toasty shop with her head in a spin. There was something different in the way he was acting tonight, something soft and personal in the tone of his voice, and it was decidedly romantic. She heard him finish paying for the books and then mutter reductio. He met her at the door, patting the pocket of his cloak. Done. What's next? Well, that's the end of my errands, he said, wincing a little as they stepped back out into the cold. But I've had a thought. How would you feel about taking a little holiday detour? Holiday detour? She asked with an uncertain smile. He tilted his head slightly to the side. Just a small one. Okay, she said, straightening up. I'll play. What did you have in mind? There was a brief flash of mischief in his eyes. Meet me in front of the shrieking shack. The shrieking, she began, but he was gone before she could finish the sentence. Following hot on his heels, he was standing casually by the fence when she appeared. Just what exactly are you up to? She asked, with amused suspicion. What are we doing here? Remus glanced up at the slice of moon as if it were both clock and compass. You'll see. Come on. They trudged beside the dilapidated fence that surrounded his old hideout, then crossed the railroad tracks and turned toward the small wood that separated the shack from the nearest edge of the lake. The snow here was a little drier than the wet stuff that had fallen in London, and Tonks didn't have to struggle quite as much to keep to her feet. Although it wouldn't be proper to praise the moon in his company, she couldn't help but notice the beautiful effect that sliver of light in the sky was having on their surroundings. Its brilliant reflection cast a surreal glow upon the white ground, and millions of tiny sparkles met her gaze as she surveyed the landscape. Are you ready to tell me what we're doing out here? She whispered, feeling as if her voice could carry for 1,000 miles in the stillness. You'll see. She sighed to herself and gave up on getting any sort of explanation. As they approached the trees, the snow became crisper, crunching louder and louder beneath their boots. Even in the dim light, Tonks could swear she saw Remus sway a bit as if he'd slipped. Then he stopped abruptly. Ice, he said warningly, stating that the very fear that had just entered her mind. Tonks looked down. The day's bit of sun must have melted some of the snow off the trees. The water had dripped onto the snow below and frozen again, leaving a glassy ribbon to shine beneath the moonlight. Wherever it is we're going, Remus, I'll never make it. If it's all the same to you, I'd just as soon apparate and save an embarrassing fall in me bum. But it won't be icy once we pass the tree line. It doesn't matter, I only need one wrong step and it's over. Tonks felt his gloved hand close around hers. This is where we're going. He tightened his grip then, keeping her steady as she crossed the slippery threshold like an uncertain toddler. Once they made it to safer ground, Remus lit his wand and cast the bright searchlight beam around him. What are we looking for? She whispered. Your Christmas tree. He whispered back. She was speechless, and for a moment there wasn't room for anything in her heart but him. His thoughtfulness, and the thrilling realization that he hadn't let go of her hand. They stood there in that chilly and silent cathedral, the light from his wand drifting along in front of them until he stopped to highlight a small tree only a few paces away. He looked down at her. What about that one? Really? The word floated away on a cloud of white breath. It's perfect, but is it okay? I think of these trees as mine, he said quietly, looking up at the dense canopy of branches over their heads. He added, at least the ones that can be seen from the upstairs window. He tipped his head in the general direction of the shrieking shack. I can't imagine anyone else would object. I don't know what to say, Remus. It's so cute. He pulled her along as he drew near the little tree, and with a well-aimed spell, Remus cut it down in one shot and picked it up. Ready? Ready, she echoed, preoccupied with the gentle squeeze he'd given her hand. You said you have decorations, right? He dimmed his wand and held it up to see her face. She stared at him, dizzied by the warm smile on his face. Yes, but, you want to come over and help me? Unless you'd rather I didn't. No, she said, still staring. I love it. When she pulled out the decorations, Remus set the tree up in the corner, near her small fireplace. It was in just the right spot to be visible from nearly everywhere in the flat. Tonks even dashed to her room to lie on her bed, testing the theory that she'd be able to see it from there too, and she could. Using an eclectic collection of magical and old Muggle ornaments, it took them nearly 2 hours to trim it. When it was finally finished, they sat back on their settee to enjoy some wine, leftover shepherd's pie, and the leisure to admire their handiwork. One thing was for certain. The tree was adorable, and by that point she was pretty much sold on the idea that Remus was adorable too. It was so wonderful to spend an evening like that with him, just talking and laughing. Maybe it was the wine, or the lateness of the hour, or being all warm and full, but Tonks couldn't remember ever feeling more content. She lost count of how many times she'd thank him for the tree and for coming over. Even if it was 1,000 times, it wasn't enough. Remus refilled their glasses with the last of the wine and returned the empty bottle to the kitchen, along with their dinner dishes. As he passed back by the table, he picked up the wrapped package that concealed his new kidskin gloves. This belongs under the tree now, I should think. You can put it there if you want, she said dreamily. It's yours. He stopped and turned to look at her. Mine? She nodded and smiled shyly, and let the soothing wine speak for her. I didn't know when to give it to you. It's been sitting around here for the past week. He smiled vaguely. I don't know what to say. Since you're here, she patted the settee cushion, why don't you open it now? Remus made his way over and sat down next to her. But it's not Christmas yet. I should wait, he said, smiling as he raised the present to his ear and shook it gently. Well, I want to see you open it, and tomorrow I'll be with my parents. Reaching for her hand and leaning closer, he gazed at her intently. What about later on Christmas Day? Will you have any free time then? The soft, rasping tone in his voice had her head spinning again. I might have some free time. Picking at the buttons of his dress shirt, she tilted her face upward and looked into his blue-green eyes. What did you have in mind? Maybe a fire and some hot buttered rum? He had drifted closer with each word until he kissed her. She mumbled, kissing him back. Not a bad idea, if you ask me. Alrighty, everyone. That was The Holiday Detour by P0rtkey. Give the author some love. I love how fandoms and fanfictions can throw different scenes and spins, and it's just wonderful to see all that energy come out in stories like this. And this was well done. Although I will say that, where was it? There was one line, using an eclectic collection of magical and old Muggle ornaments. I had to do that line 6 times. And I hope it really sounded good here, but that was a great line because it described the thing. It described everything on this tree and give us an image. So, P0rtkey, well done. I'm just a schmuck reading it. If you want to give the author some good vibes, you know what to do. I'm going to have a link down below. You give them a review. Tell them what you think of it. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been Big T, and you guys have a good one. Ta-ta for now.